Welcome to the Unbuttoned Up podcast, where career talk gets real and a little unbuttoned.
We're here to help you land the job, get the promotion, and make your next move without sounding like a corporate robot.
Are you climbing the ladder or are you plotting your escape? We are saying what everyone's thinking at work, but we are saying it out loud.
So grab your coffee or cocktail and let's get unbuttoned.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Unbuttoned Up podcast. Today, Steph and I are excited to sit down with Alan Starr, the CIO at Goodwill Industries, and we are talking about his leadership journey, how technology can make a real impact, how to build high-performing teams, and of course, we will talk about the stories that you won't find on LinkedIn. Let's jump in. So we have Alan Starr here today. He is the CIO of Goodwill Industries, and I am super excited to have you here. Last night I was actually down a rabbit hole on LinkedIn, on your LinkedIn, looking at all of the nice things that people had to say about you who had worked with you previously. And I noticed a lot of common themes. And, a couple things were approachable, thoughtful with the way that you approach problems, professional, thoughtful, steady. I mean, pretty much everyone had something wonderful to say about you, of course. And I loved to read those. So excited to dive in a little bit deeper today and learn a little bit more about you, and we'll kick it off from here. So,
Alan, CIO of Goodwill. I think a lot of people have this perception of Goodwill as just a retail consignment type of store, but it's goes way beyond that. How did you get involved with Goodwill, and tell us a little bit of the backstory and backgrounds of it?
So, years ago, I've been with Goodwill now for 11 years as their CIO, and when I first interviewed for the position, it was interesting. It was a CIO opportunity, and so I wanted to take a look at it. I didn't really know too much about Goodwill and what they did. I knew about the retail operation, and then I took my donations to Goodwill, but I didn't know all the services that they do as a not-for-profit, and so. That's sometimes a misconception that I think people have about not-for-profits, is that they're like a charity, but we're not a charity. Goodwill as a whole, nationwide, is a $7 billion operation, and then it's a federated approach. So within the West Central Florida, we run about a $100 million operation between our retail and our other business services that we provide for governments to help support the funds that go into the community. And so we take 88% of our operating profit and put that back into the community and the services that we provide for the company. But we have to have the same needs, the same functions, departments as any other $100 million business. And we have technology around that supports it. And so we have to keep up with latest and greatest of applications, cybersecurity, of course, and even looking at more innovative technologies like AI and business intelligence and so forth.
I can't wait to dive into that a little bit more and what you're doing with technology with Goodwill. Have you always wanted to work for a nonprofit? Is that like a passion of yours that you've always had, or how did you get that opportunity to be in this role?
Yeah, I've worked with a lot of different companies. Some people, when they start their career, even in technology, they might focus on specifically like manufacturing, or they might focus on healthcare, and they kind of get stuck in that niche. But I've been fortunate to work for a lot of different types of companies, from manufacturing to software services to hospitality with like Bloomin' Brands, and also on the travel side with TUI Travel, TUI Marine. I've worked in manufacturing for a cement manufacturing company that's an international company. I also came here and worked for Gerdau Steel for a few years. And so, after my tenure with Bloomin' Brands, there was this opportunity for Goodwill. And I didn't really know too much about it, but it was a CIO position, so that kind of intrigued me, and I interviewed for the position. it looked like they really needed some help to kind of turn around their IT and technology department, and so I decided to give that a try to help get that turnaround going and to kind of learn more about what a non-for-profit company is all about.
That's great.
Absolutely. And I'm sure, as a technology leader, you get pitched all the time on different types of technologies. How do you look at, all of these different pitches and figure out, hey, you don't need the most expensive, sexy technology all the time? Like, how do you figure out what is really going to drive innovation and, some things that you might hold on a little bit? Like, what are some of the biggest things that you look for?
That's a good question. I mean, as a not-for-profit, we have to be frugal with the spend that we have, but we do have to spend money in certain areas, and cybersecurity is a great example. I mean, when cybersecurity became big here years ago, every IT or technology firm all of a sudden had cybersecurity in their portfolio. And so it's very hard to kind of sift through some of that and figure out who are the real players and who are not, because yes, I get calls every day. I don't answer my phone, unfortunately. Unless I know who's calling me, I don't answer my phone, because I could literally spend more than the day, the weeks, months, etc. on just managing vendors that call me, and it is kind of difficult in a sense too, because there are so many vendors vying for different parts of your portfolio, and I sometimes it's by just kind of hearing or reading about certain technology that then I might follow up with them, or they may have a pitch that sounds intriguing to me that I'm like, well, this is different than everybody else, I want to learn more. But then also sometimes it's just based on the biggest thing that resonates with me with vendors is building the relationship. Over time, I want to get to know you. You need to get to know me. And then if there's opportunity that makes sense, then it'll eventually come. But I don't like cold sales.
Mm-hmm. I know it's crazy to me how my phone gets blown up all the time. I can't imagine your phone. It's to the point.
And with AI too now and all these databases, it's like they call my cell phone, and if they don't reach me on my cell phone, then all of a sudden it's my work phone that's getting called, and so it's just like I know that it's a solicitation, because it's like right away both phone numbers are being rang.
Well, thanks for answering our call.
Exactly. No, I've known you, NextPath, for years, and Dan and Amy and you guys and others. You guys have a good relationship-based business, and that's what I do appreciate. So I think you guys are a pillar in the community for what you do, and I'm happy to work with you guys, because I know you're true to what you say, and it's all good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What would surprise people most about technology at a nonprofit or at Goodwill specifically? Anything? I know you mentioned cybersecurity, but what would you think would surprise people the most?
Well, I mean, like I said before, we are a business that needs to have technology. So we have a point of sale system, we have a financial system, we have an HR system, we have other mission related services. So we have a housing application that supports our 5 housing units in the Tampa Bay area. We also have quite a bit of spend that we do on cybersecurity, because whether we're for-profit or non-profit, hackers, bad actors are trying to break into wherever they can, and so we're just as susceptible as anybody else for that type of thing. And so, we have to look at all layers of security and make sure that we can secure our environment. We also look at newer technologies. Like right now, we're using a little bit of agentic AI with a company called SoulLink that basically uses our existing camera systems, and we can do things like donor counts, backups at the donor door so that we can get more people to the donor door, line busting. If there's long lines, then we can see that or get alerts to be notified to send more cashiers to the front. Also loss prevention. Maybe you can't believe it, but people do steal from Goodwill. So we have to consider things like that, where these technologies can help detect and send alerts to either loss prevention personnel or management to help address things, including from a risk compliance standpoint, slip and falls. we do have people that make claims against Goodwill for different things, and so these types of technologies, along with the video surveillance systems, help support our case.
Those are some interesting examples that I've not heard of, especially the slip and fall. But, and of course, investing in technology also saves on some of those things, of course, that can come back to hurt you. So now I really wanted to ask about your leadership, because one of the things that I was reading about is just your people leadership, and the things that people just say on LinkedIn, just how approachable you are, how much you help them grow in their careers, how much people love to have you as a leader. And so was there anything at all in your time that you may have made a mistake, for example, that changed the way that you lead?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably a lot of mistakes that I've made, but one of the things that I learned very early on is that you have to be direct with individuals, but yet be humble, have humility, have empathy towards situations and having those difficult conversations. Because if you don't necessarily be direct with individuals about what the expectations are, then you're not going to get the results that you want. And so I think I've always tried to be fair and direct about what's needed and why. And that's the key aspect too. Is like just asking somebody to do something sometimes doesn't get the result that you want. When you can describe what the why is, why we're doing this, makes all the difference.
Yeah, I think that is keys of a good leader. Just being patient, really understanding what your employees need, and telling them why, I think is big, instead of just saying like the mom and dad, I told you so because I said so.
Yes.
It's interesting too. People have told me that they've come in with like this horrific situation, and I'll just sit there and I'll kind of listen to them and take it in, and I'm not like reactive in a sense, because I feel like reactions aren't going to help anything. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, well, what's the problem? How can we address it? What can we do? And I worked for actually leaders that sometimes expect you to kind of dive in and take over for the team and fix everything. And honestly, in certain situations maybe that applies, but yet I also believe in, helping, the team or that manager or whoever to address the issue themselves and give them some advice on what to do, and let them kind of turn it around, as opposed to me coming in and taking over, because I don't feel like that's an appropriate way of doing that. So that's also where I try to hold to my values, what I believe is a good leader. And I've had good leaders and I've had bad leaders, and you learn a little bit from everybody, and you try to apply the good and you try to not apply the bad.
Is there ever a time where you had to make an unpopular decision where maybe people didn't agree with you?
Well, I think the biggest unpopular decision that I had to make, and it's not a matter of whether they agreed with me or not, it's just the fact of the reality is when we were in the pandemic, I had to furlough my entire team. And so I was kept on, but I also took a significant pay cut. That was a very difficult situation for me. I retained every one of the individuals because I continued to communicate with them frequently. And I was very transparent and honest. I told them, I said, I will tell you everything that I know. And I said, if there's things that I cannot tell you, I will tell you that I cannot tell you, and I will tell you when I can tell you. And so I think it's important to be, in those types of situations, it's important to be very transparent and keep the lines of communication open. And so during that time, I did that. I called my team members like at least if not every day, twice a week. And as I learned when things were starting to settle and things were starting to come back, and then I started reaching out to people that I could bring back, and I tried to bring them back as soon as I could bring them. And I know that was a very difficult time for individuals, because during a furlough you're not getting paid, but you still have your household bills, you have your family obligations and everything too. So that puts a burden on a lot of people. And so I was fortunate and blessed that everybody came back.
That's good. Yeah, that was a tough time, but transparency and open communication is so important.
Yes. And Ellen, I was in a similar situation at one point where I was on the furlough side and I had a leader like that. And she is someone that I still text today all the time. She's someone I will always remember. And she's become more like, she was my leader, someone I reported to, but also friend and someone that would be there for me and kind of hear things out. So those are the type of people that you never forget about. So, let's see. We have a lot of other exciting stuff.
I know. I would be interesting to know kind of the evolution of your career, how you got to CIO, and like, what did you want to be whenever you were growing up? Yeah.
I feel like I'm still not growing up. But anyway, I still have aspirations, and we were talking about it a little bit before the call here, or the podcast, but I knew when I was 15, I was in high school, there was a day where they were passing out hard copies of titles of careers, and it was pages and pages of titles, and I already knew in my head what I wanted, and I went through and I found systems analysis or systems analyst, and so I knew right then at 15 that I wanted to be in technology.
Really?
I knew that it was kind of the future, and I just knew I wanted to do it. Now some days I'm like, why did I get into IT? But most days I'm glad I got into technology. And so from there I did a 2-year stint of data processing through my high school, where I went to another school and did a data processing class for 2 weeks, 2 days a week for 3 hours a day. And after that 2 years, then I got a certificate for data processing. Then after that, I took a year off. I wasn't ready to kind of rush off to college. I worked at an auto parts warehouse, and I moved up through there from being a runner to go get the parts to being a driver and driving routes, and then going into customer service and taking orders. But then at that point, I knew okay, I need to get going in my college career. So I went to undergrad up in Michigan at Ferris State University, which at that time was known for its computer information systems program. And so a lot of the big firms like Meyer, Steelcase, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan, some of the bigger insurers in that area were hiring directly out of Ferris State. So I knew I had the opportunity for a job with that. And that, what I liked about that too was they taught you everything about the technology industry, not just coding or systems analysis or just systems administration. So I got to touch all kinds of aspects of IT, which I think helped me in my career when I started, because I had a deeper knowledge of all areas of IT. But then also with that degree, it was also a business degree, so I had a lot of accounting, finance, stats, all that stuff, macroeconomics, microeconomics, and so that started my brain kind of learning and thinking about the business aspects. And so did that, took some initial jobs. A lot of those jobs were kind of starter jobs, and I would move on pretty quickly to my next job. Worked my way up to project manager. Then took a manager job with an international manufacturer, and that's where the rubber kind of hit the road for my leadership. And I learned very quickly that just because you're a manager doesn't mean that people are going to listen to you. So and at that point too, I think very early on in my career, I realized that leadership was more than just managing people and also understanding technology. That it was also understanding business, understanding people, motivating people, and everything too. So there was a lot of things that I did in order to kind of grow myself as a leader. And then at a certain point, I went and got my MBA from Michigan State University, which at the time was a lot of the C-level individuals from the auto industry were going through that program. So it was quite renowned in that area. But then, of course, I moved to Florida. So it didn't really help me out with the connections up that way. But again, like with an MBA and any degree, I think it's not where you get it from, but it's how you use it. Mm-hmm. And so I think that was a good time for me when I later went to that program, through that program, and then applied the learnings and everything in my daily work. And so from there, I've had different director positions, senior director positions, and worked for quite a few companies here in Florida. Been in Florida for about 18 years, But then at the point where I still wanted to continue to grow my career, I came across the CIO position with Goodwill and applied and got the job, and I've been there for 11 years now.
Wow.
Which is, I say in IT, that's like dog years.
Yeah. What does your day look like as a CIO?
It's a lot of different things. I mean, it's really trying to, I do quite a few different things. I try to make sure that my team has what they need to do their job, and I give them the autonomy to do what they need to do, and they know that they can come to me if they have any issues. Mondays are usually my check-in day with my team, so I'm just kind of, seeing how things are going with some of the projects that we're working on in the different areas. And then we have different project meetings that I attend, and either pitch in as far as what I think we should do, or a lot of times just listen in for status. But then there's a lot of projects that I kind of lead myself. One of them was I helped develop and implement a warehouse management system within our warehouse. And we don't inventory our donated goods, but we do about 15% of revenue with what we call new goods, which is like all kinds of stuff like cleaning supplies, dog stuff, house things, just different things that you can buy new, and then we sell them in our store along with the donated goods to give more of a full experience to our shoppers. So we did that. Initially, we were looking at RFID technology to see how we could use RFID technology for inventory management, but found that it was too costly. RFID tags are still quite expensive for the margins that we're getting on our new goods. So we decided to go to QR codes, and we didn't go to QR codes on each product. Well, we did have QR codes on each product, but yet we wanted to do a QR code system on our pallets. So then that way we could receive the merchandise from our vendors, bring it into the warehouse, through take the inventory of it, and then as we break down the inventory into our store pallets, then we would be able to send those out to the stores. They'd be able to scan the code from the pallet that automatically transfers from the warehouse management system into the point of sale system, and then they can push the
Okay.
yeah, they can push then the inventory from the warehouse management system to the point of sale system and be able to sell it at the store. So, that's one of the projects. I'm also very heavily involved with sustainability, which was an area that's not technology directly, but it's more operational. So if you think about like all the donations that we get, it goes through our stores, it goes through the outlet, but then after retail, we have a lot of stuff that's left over, and we need to think about alternative sources to where we can either recycle or upcycle or resell items. And so glass, plastics, unused textiles, and so forth. And so I started up our sustainability program at Goodwill, and since then I have now an individual working for me in sustainability, and then we have some other individuals that are also wearing multiple hats that help out with the operational aspects of sustainability. So it's been a lot of fun. That's been actually taking up quite a bit of my time. Probably lately is some of the sustainability activities.
I love that.
Yeah.
Where do you see AI creating like the biggest opportunity for you?
Everywhere. I think AI can be used in every area of the business. We at Goodwill have we've rolled out quite a bit as far as generative AI, and we're a Microsoft shop, so we use Copilot. And I've been using it quite extensively to do different things. It saves me hours, if not days, sometimes with some of the Excel spreadsheet analysis that I'm doing, or even developing policies, procedures, documents. It helps me get a good start to some of the bullets and ideas that I have, and so I leverage it quite a bit. But I think, like I mentioned with the surveillance system, I think agentic AI is kind of the next step that we are looking at. How can that help us so we can use agents to do some of the mundane processes? It's kind of like I feel like sometimes the names change, but like robotic process automation. So agentic AI, I think, is the convergence of AI along with RPA to be able to then create agents that can do work either within the confines of a human interacting with it or autonomously too.
That's exciting. I'm always curious how people are using this. And like you said, the process is the biggest area, and the admin type work that we're constantly doing everything single time, and it's just much easier. So,
Right.
yeah.
I mean, you hate to spend time on stuff that you could have. I mean, it used to be, unfortunately, like some of the entry-level individuals would do some of those tasks for you. Now AI, I think, is replacing some of those tasks, and that's why you hear and see some of the struggles that maybe some of the initial college students are coming out with, and because those jobs are not as plentiful as they used to be, and so that is a big challenge. But I think if those college students learn how to leverage AI and help with that, there should be hopefully good opportunity for them to help build out that stuff. Because that's one of my challenges now too. Is I have a good team, and it's a mature team, but trying to sometimes get them over to like using some of these tools and thinking about that has been hard because they've done it this way, a certain way for quite a bit. But we're making strides in a lot of different areas, and I think it's just a matter of time.
I think people sometimes, when they get nervous about this, they forget that at one point we didn't have the World Wide Web, right? So then that happened, then it changed the way that people could communicate with businesses or marketing, for example. And just the quick interaction that you can get. So there's definitely a lot of cool stuff that, people should just take the time to learn a little bit about it, I think. And it's okay to be a little bit reluctant at first. I mean, everyone should be a little bit careful with what they're putting in to protect themselves, but really trying to learn and then maybe embrace a little bit from there what you enjoy and just take that step. Because I think some people are just sitting in the back seat a little bit right now trying to figure out, okay, how are people using this? We'll wait until we see the perfect process happen. But I mean, what would you tell people who are...
Yeah, you really have to kind of dive in right now and not like too aggressively. You have to have governance around it. You have to think about true use cases for these applications. Don't do AI for AI's sake. I mean, I hear a lot of stories sometimes where a board member or CEO says, we need to get AI in our business. And it's like, that's a really general statement. It's like, okay, there's a lot to AI. Okay, we need to look at specific use cases that make sense. And you have to have pilots, proof of concepts, and kind of give it some trials here. You can't really go into the deep end right away. You kind of have to go slowly into it and then build from that and build from your learnings and everything. So I think, and things are changing so fast too. That's getting back to your question about like how do you select vendors and everything too. It's like there's now so many AI vendors out there, and it's trying to figure out, okay, who's going to be here in 3 years? I mean, there's going to be a lot of companies that are startups, and then there's going to be a lot of consolidation eventually, and so who are going to be the players afterwards? So I'm not even honestly signing 3-year contracts anymore. It's like I will only do a year contract with vendors because I don't know what things are going to look like in a year's time.
Yeah, that's so true. We dove a lot into Goodwill and your role there. I want to hear more about outside of work, what you do, because I know you're involved in a lot of organizations like SIM, TBT, other leadership organizations. What do you do outside of your full-time job? Because I feel like you do a lot in the community and
Well, maybe I'll start with some of the fun things that I do. When I'm outside of work, at least, I like to hang out with my best friend, my wife, and my family. And most weekends, you'll see us on our boat, at some beach, hanging out, or on the boat near the water. But one of the things that I like to do for myself is I'm a musician. I play guitar. I play guitar most of my life. I've since have learned how to play the drums a bit. I've learned how to play the piano a little bit. I have a music room in my house that has pretty much any instrument, so we could have a rock band, the real rock band, playing, which is fun. We've had family nights where we all just grab instruments. And it probably sounds like a lot of noise, but we're having fun.
It's fun.
But yeah, I mean, outside of Goodwill and my direct day job, I've been with the Tampa Bay Tech folks back when it was Tampa Bay Tech Forum, and I was working on committees for the award ceremonies and everything back with Kim and others back in those days. That was a lot of fun. I've consistently been as part of the CIO Council, where we get together and we discuss issues, and then there's also vendors and others that come in to kind of educate us on what's happening, and of course attending the conferences that TBT has, like Powered Up here recently was a great event at Mahaffey. So I've tried to keep a closeness with that organization. That was the organization that I was introduced to when I first moved down to Florida, and I thought it was a great organization because I know where I came from in the kind of Michigan, Detroit area. There was a lot of niche type organizations like Oracle Database, DBA Association, and there was like other niches, but there wasn't like a overall technology organization. Mm-hmm. So that was really cool when I got down here to see that there was an organization like that. And then here probably about 8 years ago, I heard about a startup called SIM, which is Society for Information Management. And I believe there was a few founding individuals, but I think Hurley Dunn, the CIO from Blooming Brands kind of was involved with that and some of the other locations he was at, so he helped start up SIM Tampa Bay, and I kind of heard a little bit about that. And then at one point, I just got invited to one of their networking events, and Bill Wass, who was one of the founding members of the SIM Tampa Bay, asked me to be on the board, and so I decided to join the board. I was kind of just a board member at large for a while. Then I got involved with hosting the dinner enclaves that we do for like C-level technology executives, and so I ran that for a couple of years, and then became the vice president, and now currently serve as president of SIM Tampa Bay.
Wow! Congratulations!
Yeah,
yes.
Thanks. Yeah, it's my wife tells me that I'm a glutton for punishment.
Does she, because this is always, I know my personal situation at home because I'm involved in a lot of things too. Does she like understand and like get all of the things that you do outside of work?
Yeah, she's very supportive, but like I have to be conscious, like anybody, to I can't be going out every twice a week, to events and everything. So I'm very selective on what I attend. Not just because it's like I have to think about it's a balance between kind of the work and the additional career type stuff that I want to do and the family life and everything too. So I try to balance it as best as I can.
That's good. Yeah. Otherwise, it can consume you. Like there's events all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
We want to do some fun rapid fire questions. So we'll go like a little quicker on this part. And first thing that comes to your mind. What's the best career advice you've ever received?
Just be yourself. Be true to yourself and your values.
That's a good one.
What is the biggest leadership lesson you've learned?
To be more personable. I think when I first started in my career, I was very serious. I had my work life, I had my personal life, but I learned over time, and I think today's world and culture, as a leader, you have to be more personable.
What is one AI tool that you use every single day?
Copilot, yes, for almost everything. Which, some people, it's interesting, some people feel like, okay, I don't want to use Copilot because then I feel like I'm cheating. And it's like, well, the way I look at it is like, I'm still coming up with the ideas, I'm still putting together the bullets, but if I can have an agent or Copilot help me kind of throw a draft together, that will save me hours of my day that I can focus in on something else.
Mm-hmm. And this is a quick follow-up question just because I'm curious. Have you used or compared it to like ChatGPT and Claude and other ones, and that's like your favorite, or is it just?
Well, I haven't necessarily used some of the others in depth. The reason why I use Copilot is because that is the enterprise license that we're using at Goodwill, and so I'm trying to, as the CIO, use it as much as I can so I can offer advice and guidance to others. But we are looking at Claude, and we're looking at ChatGPT and other things.
Yeah.
What is your favorite leadership book or podcast besides the Unbuttoned Up podcast?
That's my number one. My favorite book, and I've read a lot of books, and recently, last year, I was in a program where I had to read 25 books in 6 months. But still, my go-to favorite is the Servant Leadership by James Hunter. There was a couple things there. I felt like that really kind of opened up my eyes of like how a leader should act, and that's to serve others in order to get the best out of folks. And I also liked it because it was based out of Michigan, on Lake Michigan, where a auto industry executive went over to Lake Michigan to a monastery and spent weeks there, kind of rethinking his career. And what came out of it was this book.
My parents had me read that book.
Oh, yeah?
Right when I got one of my first jobs, actually, to start thinking about that. It's a great book.
Audiobooks or reading books, do you prefer?
I prefer reading, but yet sometimes I try to kill two birds with one stone in a sense, where audiobooks are great, especially when I'm on a long commute, where I can, or if I'm riding my bicycle, I can go and listen to that and still get the most of it. But I prefer sitting and reading.
Yeah. And then last but not least, what is one hill that you'll always die on? Leadership, technology, life, like just...
Right. Yeah, it was kind of an interesting question here. I think, my focus, my career, and even, when you think about home life and being the father and the husband and everything too, I think leadership in all those areas is important. And so I would have to say leadership.
I like it.
And I just want to end with one last question. Is there anything that we did not ask today that people might be surprised to learn about you, either as a person or as a leader?
Well, I guess one thing is that it's kind of funny. Maybe the way I'm dressed, you wouldn't think so. But I'm kind of a biker at heart. So I dirt bike. I've done motocross. I've done flat track road racing with motorcycles. Over my lifetime, I've had 12 motorcycles.
Wow.
And I have 5 right now.
I was going to ask if you had a motorcycle. You have 5. Wow.
Yeah, well, that includes 2 street bikes and then 3 dirt bikes and a quad. But it just is something that I've always had, and I got that from my father. He's been a motorcyclist his entire life. He's had many different bikes. He also, at a point that I was younger and everything, he had a few different models of bikes, but he mainly had BMWs is what I knew him for, and BMWs are like touring motorcycles. And so he and I, when I was younger, went on a lot of trips on motorcycles. So I'd be in the back and he would ride, and
so cool.
So we went to different places all over the country, and went to different national BMW motorcycle rallies and everything, which very family oriented, and everybody was about touring. Like even Neil Peart from Rush, the late Neil Peart, he was a BMW enthusiast too, and he used to go to the BMW rallies himself. But I just have fond memories of doing that with my father. One of the things that I decided to do with my boys is to kind of have a bond through that. So we started off with some smaller dirt bikes, and I think within 3 years I probably bought 6 different bikes because they were growing so fast. But we still do it. My wife is a sport. She's been out there with me, and she's mudding it up and everything.
Wow.
And so we've had a lot of fun with it. But so that's kind of our winter sport, I would say. And then the summer we do a lot of boating.
Have you done the motorcycle? I know you mentioned you've done some of the cross country, like the Gatlinburg, Tennessee motorcycle ride,
the Devil's Tail, or Dragon's Tail.
Dragon's, yes.
Everybody asks me that, and I still have not done that. Yes, I've done some pretty cool roads. A friend of mine, when he was doing a stint in Spain, we were in the Pyrenees Mountains, and we rented a couple BMW motorcycles and toured around the Pyrenees, and there was some pretty tight curves and everything too, and they don't have lines, and the road is like only a car length and a half.
Yeah.
So you got to be real careful to the corners around there, because you don't want to just all of a sudden greet a car in front of you.
Yeah, I've done that in a car a couple times, and that's scary.
Yeah.
Like enough that way. I can't imagine on a motorcycle, but I know it's known for that. I love learning new things. All right. Well, thank you so much, Alan, for joining us today.
Yeah.
This has been a pleasure.
Thank you, Alan.
So much fun. As always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and rate us.
And remember to always be bold, be curious,
And a little unbuttoned.